When Congress returns from recess, lawmakers will have just a few days to pass a budget and avoid a government shutdown. But it may be an uphill battle because President Trump's proposed budget has raised some eyebrows, even with members inside his own party. Joining us now to break it all down is Mark Goldwein, Senior Vice President of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. I like that, responsible federal. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
First and foremost, I want to get to the fact that, yes, we do want to keep the lights on, and we don't have a ton of time to do it. But I want to ask you, when we talk about the budget, there is so much that cannot be changed, and why is that?
Well, so we're actually debating two budgets right now. We're debating fiscal year 2017, which we need to pass in a couple of weeks, and fiscal year 2018. But we're only debating 30% of all spending.
Why is that?
We're only looking at what's called discretionary spending. This is the agency money, defense, education, Department of Interior, that Congress decides every year. The other 70 cents out of every dollar is entitlement spending.
But
Things
we
like
heard
Social Security,
some campaign
Medicare.
rhetoric that there may be, down the road, some changes to entitlement spending. Is that a possibility?
Well, we need changes to entitlements. It's where most of the money is, and our budget is far, far out of balance. But President Trump has said he won't touch Social Security, he won't touch
Baby boomers,
Medicare.
he can't.
That's right. This pledge is not sustainable forever. We have to make changes to Social Security. But the problem is, if we keep this promise for just a few years, the changes in the future are going to be even more painful.
Okay, so separate for me. What are we talking about that comes on April 28th? What do we need to accomplish for that particular budget? Because we hear some of the things that President Trump wants to change, and that's for 2018.
Right. So for April 28th, the big thing we need to do is just keep the lights on. Just extend what we're doing right now. We can make some changes in the margins, but the real debate is what are we going to do the next year? But then the real important debate is what are we going to do the 10, 20, and 30 years after that? Because that's when our debt gets out of control because of the rising cost of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on the debt.
Okay, so let's talk. I want your interpretation and break down President Trump's proposals for the 2018 budget.
Here's all President Trump has told us so far. He wants to increase defense spending by about $50 billion and pay for it by cutting non-defense spending by $50 billion. And that's going to be State Department cuts, EPA cuts, cuts to NIH. But he's only, again, talking about this 30% of the budget in 1 year. He's missing the other 70 cents out of every dollar.
Okay, so perhaps not completely realistic. What would be something that you would propose? How could you find a middle ground between what he's proposing and what is really the status quo?
Well, I think some defense hikes make sense given these sequester cuts. Some non-defense cuts make sense because we have wasteful spending everywhere. But what we really need to do is things like raise the Social Security retirement age, change Medicare to pay more for value instead of just quantity of care, and start making gradual changes to these large spending programs that are really driving the entire budget.
When he talks about the proposals on making some of those cuts to non-discretionary, and they turn out to be fairly unpopular with people who are affected, and sometimes those are his base, how does he walk that fine line in still making those certain cuts, like you said, getting rid of some of the waste, but then keeping his base happy? And some of those programs are necessary. Some of those programs that are in the budget are necessary.
Well, he was proposing pretty deep cuts in some areas. I think we can shallow those out a little bit, focus on where the real waste is, and instead, as I said before, our largest program is Social Security. Our second largest is Medicare. Our third largest is Defense. Our fourth largest is Medicaid. No cuts so far to any of those programs.
But you're not going to see any cuts in those programs in 2018?
I don't think so in 2018, but even if we make gradual changes that start in 2018 and phase in over time, it would do a heck of a lot more good than, cutting another $1 billion out of NIH. Okay,
so he can propose those, but my question is he going to get that approval from Congress?
Even President Obama had $400 billion of Medicare savings in his budget. If a Republican President Trump can't get as much savings as a Democrat President Obama, we're in big trouble.
All right, Mark. Well, we'll see. Thank you so much for that preview. You make budgets sound pretty exciting, so we'll see what happens.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.